Not necessarily what our identity is. So let's say the country where you have citizenship. And maybe since Ms. McCarthy just spoke, I'll give her a few minutes to have some peace. Why don't we begin with Stefan at the end? If you wouldn't mind offering some reflections. And it looks as if we're lucky and we do have some microphones, so we should be okay with the sound.
All right.
Stefan, if you could begin, that would be great.
All right. My own reflection, yes, I would prefer the salad model, basically. As long as the vegetables are combined into the salad, basically. I feel like, when we have people coming into the U.S., as Mark alluded to, in the past it's been you were expected to lose basically all of your native culture, ideas, etc., and become part of this sort of unified American whole. And I think that in the last couple of decades, it's become, our society has been enriched by sort of a changing ethic in that, we still want you to become, fully American, of course, but it's okay to retain some of your, past traditions, etc. And I like that. I think that's great because it allows those of us who's, my family, they immigrated to the States from Ireland and France 150 years ago, and we have no French-Irish traditions. I've got the red hair. That's about it. We didn't really retain any of that, and I think it would be nice to have some sort of legacy, I guess, to hold on to. So at the same time, it's nice to know new immigrants. I know several from various countries who are retaining some of their traditions and whatnot, and it's providing an education for me, I think, helping me become a more international citizen, I suppose. So I guess that's my thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you. Some French perspectives? Please.
Well, so I am from France, but my father was from Spain, and I have been living a long time in Argentina. Well, I think that we always have to make a distinction about culture between what is music, food, poetry, and human rights. Integration means that you have a common perception of human rights, and this common perception is the Universal Declaration of Women's Rights and the Convention for Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. And this gender dimension of immigration has not been sufficiently focused during this meeting. There is something that we should not forget, is that now you have around 50% of immigrants who are women. And these women are vulnerable, desperate, frightened, the words you used. They have been raped during their the way to our country. They are often being frightened in their own country, and they are leaving their own country not only because of economical reasons, but for violence, because of forced marriage they want to escape to. And so they are coming here, and we are not giving them the same rights as we have because of multiculturalism. So I cannot accept this. Moreover, when we speak about crisis, we have to understand that crisis has an impact on the poorest part of the population. And the poorest part of the population are women. When you cut the budget, you are cutting the caring activities, which these women are doing. When you have violence, the first violence is between men and women. So if you don't deal with this issue of what do you understand by multiculturalism and universalism and the gender dimension of immigration, you will never solve the problem.
Thank you very much. some German perspectives?
Yes, the German perspective, rather my own perspective, first of all. I'm German. I'm born in Germany, grew up there. My father was American. He liked to stay after the war in Germany. He married my mother, and that's how it happened. Anyways, I'm German. And somebody asked me, what are you? What is your background? What is your migration background in one of the conferences, even here? And I said, rather, wait a minute, I will tell you, I will let you know. And then when I opened the speech to present myself, I said, I migrated from Frankfurt to Bonn. That's my migrational background, and the same reaction was there. But coming back to your proposition, whether I like soup or salad, I actually like both, but whenever I eat, I like, most of it, I like the dessert. That's what I like. And that's what I also like about the migration and the immigration. I think the dessert, which I like very much, namely all the potentials of the migrations, whether it is language, not that I only speak 5 languages, but some of you also speak various languages, not only this one, but then also to be living in various cultural contexts, to have an understanding, to have an ability of moderating, to solve and to assist conflict resolution. But what in my country very often happens, and you definitely, I think all of you have read what happened lately with the migrants and immigrants, this terrible and horrible murdering which happened there. But the press is very often responsible. And even from one of the panelists I heard you cited, this one you were talking about, everybody was anxious about the flood of migrants. I mean, when you look into the German press, you very often hear that you have the impression you're in an encyclopedia for disasters. You hear about tsunami, tidal waves, avalanches, and so on, and floods. You also hear of migrants, especially when it comes to African migrants. But therefore, you need research. I'm a researcher. I'm the head of a research institute in Bonn, Bonn International Center for Conversion, so we are researching these issues. And you look into the figures, then you realize there's only 1.5% of the sub-Saharan Africans who actually come to Europe or the United States. But if you look into the figures where they are migrating, there are about 17 million who are migrating within their own continent. So, I mean, these tidal waves, these avalanches, I think the prejudices, and one of the last points I would like to mention, it hadn't been mentioned yet, I'm a bit surprised, but the securitization of this issue. It's not a security issue, it's a securitization. Look, for instance, at Frontex. We haven't heard about Frontex, but everybody of you knows about Frontex. They're building walls. I mean, what the hell is this? Or we are also arguing and researching on small arms, light weapons. We have one of the fields is disarmament. So if you look into arms, where are the arms delivered to and where does it happen in order to protect? So I think there are definitely very many points I could raise, but coming back to the food, I like the dessert of all the potentials.
Thank you very much. Mohammed?
Yes, thank you. I think this is a great opportunity, and this is, I think, a great example of how multiculturalism come together in one room in London, you know, with the various faces, various backgrounds. I'm originally from Iraq. I've migrated from my country a long time ago, 76, and I've been all over, you know, Europe, Middle East, North Africa. So, you know, I can give you an overview how beautiful is multiculturalism and how beautiful is migration. It is the essence of us, a human being. And again, I like this example. I'll go for the salad example. I'm sorry. You know,
oh, not dessert.
But I believe the salad example is a great example. But the salad dressing is the policy that the country can make to make the salads beautiful at the end of it. Because we can mix together, but if we don't have a government policy that will bring us together, we end up, you know, being together but not really living together. I think multiculturalism and migration, it makes us human as who we are now and how we can live and move forward together. I've been living in the UK for 20 years, and I suffered, as the lady there from Australia said. I came here and the first question asked is, where are you from, what are you doing? It did not welcome me as a member of, you know, British society. But I made myself a member of British society. I've made myself to be integrated with the British society, but I do kept my identity as who I am, my religion and my culture, did not conflict that. Sometimes it might, but did at the end of it, when I explain myself to them and who I am and where I'm from, I think the fear of who I am has melted. I think the issue with the news or what have you, that creates the fear or the barrier between the migration and people coming to this country. But sooner or later, it'll melt. Like what we've seen before in the 50s and 60s when the Caribbean came to this country and we had this policy of, no black allowed to be run to the house and see them migrate to Brixton or those areas. And then after we saw the Asian issue, and before that we saw the Jewish issue in this country who are not allowed. But that's all has melted because we forced ourselves and we opened up to the British society. I think the issue here is the issue of migration who keep themselves to themselves and who doesn't really try to integrate with the country they live in, and they not try hard to explain themselves. They say, oh, we're not bothered, we just keep ourselves to ourselves, we'll move to an area where we are all together and we don't care about the British society. But I think our issue is trying to open up. I think cultural diplomacy and public diplomacy is the main tool and the method that we learn now is how we can open up to others. And from my view for the future is let's live together and let's understand each other. When we understand each other, we're not going to fear each other. We're going to have kind of a harmony. We can live in each other because we learn. We can pick from each other. We can really move forward. Without moving forward, I mean, in this country, if without migration, we can end up with fish and chips daily. Fish and chips and pie and mashed peas with respect to the food. But now you can see the diversity of food we have in this country and diversity of music, diversity of living and the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we behave. It is thanks to the migration and thanks to people coming from Europe, from Asia, from Africa, from India, from Caribbean. The beauty of it is us being together. And I think I'll leave to the rest to the next questions.
Ms. McCarthy.
Right, okay. I've had a chance to think. First of all, I should say I also not only am an immigrant here, but my parents were immigrants to the United States, and my husband's an immigrant because he's actually born in the Republic of Ireland and is very proud of being Irish. And I would like to just put forward to you 3 comparatives, or 3 items that you can compare. One is the United States, which I know of. And of course, those of you who are here from the United States will know that you learn as a child, you stand up every morning before class, I think they still do this, you say the Pledge of Allegiance. And it's drilled in you so well that you can still do it many years later. If I had to stand up now and do it, I probably could. And it is a bit of a salad, because you're Italian American, or you're Russian American, or you're Greek American, but your American at the end is sort of like your surname. And everyone is expected to deliver something into the melting pot, but it isn't quite melted because they keep little pieces of fruit and whatever in there that show that you are who you are. Then you come to the UK, and I would describe the UK as a soup, but a soup in sort of ideology as opposed to reality. This is because the United Kingdom, or let us say England, leave out Wales, England sees itself as very much of a particular uniformity, of homogeneous population, invaded by others, but homogeneous, white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, living in nice little villages in Suffolk, with a moat and a castle and Downton Abbey in the background and whatever. If any of you haven't, I would suggest you read a book called Bloody Foreigners. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book. I would suggest if you get it on Amazon. It's a book which actually explodes this myth and makes it very clear that from the very beginning, England, if not the UK altogether, is a nation of mongrels. So we're actually a salad pretending to be a soup. And that leads me to the one I want to throw in, which is sort of a wild card, which I know a bit about because of my husband, which is the Republic of Ireland. Ireland is a very interesting place. It's always exported people because of famine and tyranny from the perfidious Brits, as my husband would always say to me. Everything's wrong in Ireland because of Britain. Now it's a territory of Germany, but leaving that aside, Ireland has always had a fairly uniform population in the sense that they are Catholic, farmers, small merchants. They live in a society that's an island. And therefore, with Catholic ethics, which is all about tolerance and kindness and being good and charitable, and so forth, which is a Catholic thing. Somebody doesn't agree with me?
Yeah, no.
Let me tell you that my husband said this, and I believe that's how he went to school, and that's what he was taught. So whether it's true or not, that's the ethos that Ireland would like to present of a tolerant nation. And I would say to you that as long as the groups coming in are small, in comparison with the population, it is easier to have a salad mentality. I'm thinking particularly of the Jewish population in Ireland, which is small, highly represented in both the legal sphere and in the Dáil, the parliament there, and is seen very much as a population that's well protected. More recently, Ireland has had much more of a Muslim population coming in, and many more immigrants from Africa. And that has really tested the Irish sensibility about immigration and about its tolerance toward immigrants. And of course, it is now, like many other EU countries, particularly Spain, Portugal, and Italy, threatened with real meltdown in an economic way, in terms of jobs and possibilities. The young are leaving for Australia because that's where the jobs are. They're coming to other parts of the world. And therefore the question is, when you are under threat and you have migration, in a country that prides itself on being able to absorb and be tolerant, and have signatories of human rights and so forth, do you want to be a soup or a salad? Or would you just like people to leave you alone and just get off the menu? So I just throw that in because I think we should look at countries which have this new pressure, which they're not used to, and how they are responding to it in a way that could be positive.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the introductory comments to all of the panelists. I would suggest at this point, let's immediately turn it over to you, the participants, for any questions or comments that you have. And let us know. If it's directed to a certain panelist, please let us know. Otherwise, we can give a chance to all of the panelists. Maybe we can take on 2 or 3 questions or comments together and then offer some responses from the panel. You were first on the back, and then we'll come to the front, please.
Thank you. Well, I don't know whether to talk about the soup or the salad. Actually, I'm confused about the use of those terms. But immigration issues over the centuries rather, has always been interesting. And when I hear people talk about their fears about those coming in, taking our jobs, and therefore that gives them the reason why they should resent people coming in. It strikes me as an acceptance of inferiority, even for those local population, because you're already accepting that those coming in are better than you, and that's why they are going to take your jobs. So if that's valid, I would then ask those who agitate that way to also look back. I mean, she just talked about the Irish experience many years ago, and still today they go to other countries to work, and they are received. I mean, the American society today wouldn't be what it is without immigration. I mean, that's one beautiful land, the land of freedom and opportunity, because people from all over the place have found them, and we manage somehow to live in harmony. Well, not maybe not. And then you look at the Spanish and the Japanese. At a point in history, the Japanese were selling in quotes, their children away, sending them away to other lands to go and work. That's why you have them in Peru, everywhere in Latin America. And they contributed, they built those lands. They therefore also went back to Japan to make Japan a better place. And so why then do we suddenly find this feeling that it's okay for us to migrate and be great, and it's not okay for us to accept other people to come around? And we often give this point that, oh, they are coming to take our jobs. Who said so? Are they better than you? I mean, if the jobs are open for everybody to compete, you probably will still get the job. But if right from the beginning you are feeling that, oh, these guys are better, then it's already a self-defeatist attitude, isn't it? So I would like rather to think that people should be a little bit freer to accept other people, because immigration itself is not completely equal. I should think that people should be happy to have societies that are multicultural for the values that such societies have. Monotony is not always good. When everything is homogeneous, there is nothing to look at. Or maybe when you add, the rainbow color is perhaps more fascinating than a dull white or black color. And so if we look at it this way, perhaps we should begin to work more on the minds and thinking of people to see more of the values, the value in having other people come around you, much more than the threats. The threats you think they bring you, because you are not also perfect. Crime is not limited to any group of people. Whatever you can, cheating and lying is not limited to anybody. I mean, I'm an African, and if I go to African history, I can tell you that much of the crimes and lying and cheating that people do today, they got from the British. Yeah, pure and simple. Because I know the way the typical African society worked before the British invasion of my country, for instance. So, but we don't want to go back to those things. Let's have a society that is more accommodating, more accepting of other people's views and values. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're next, please.
The whole example, we've heard it before, and this is like not on this conference that I've heard at the same time, the first time, the concept of having a salad or a soup. I have a very big problem with that, because if we have a salad, then I have to decide whether I am an olive or a I don't know, tomato. But I cannot do that, because how am I supposed to say, like, when people ask me, you say you're an African man, you can say that, but if you ask me what I am, I don't know. I have a British passport. I had my childhood was in England. I then moved to Germany, and then I moved back to England, and then I moved back to Germany again. I love Germany. I'm organized and structured. I like organization. I'm on time.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
German that way. Then I'm getting very emotional right now, and then I'm very passionate, and that's something that comes, I think, from my Persian background. So if we have I don't understand why we have a society where we have to decide that this person is an olive and this person is something else. I don't understand why. When I look at humanity's past, when something terrible happens, then humanity has done that, and it doesn't matter if it was Germans that killed Jews, or if it was I don't know, Africans that did what happened in Rwanda. It's just something that humanity has done, and I am a part of humanity. That is, and also if something great has happened, if we've had amazing inventions, if we've had people like, if we've had freedom movements and revolutions, then that is also my legacy, because I am part of the human family. So I don't understand that we're looking at us now, why we can't live in, why society cannot start seeing each other as all members of one human race. It's a very important issue for me.
So I know you have a comment on that point, but I want to try to go on over it. Because I was going to ask you to say something, because I know how you're going to respond. But I'm not sure who is next. Can you guys help me? Who's first? If it's okay, we'll start in the back, ladies first, and then we'll come to the front. Please.
Yes. W.E. Boyce said that the problem of the 20th century was the color line, and it's still the problem of the 21st century. In the United States, by the 2000 census projected by 2050 that America would be a majority minority nation, and actually it has reached that point. I've heard discussions about the conference that the U.S. is this bastion of morality because of the values and the virtues, but the reality is that people of color, in essence, are being ostracized, they're being victimized. We have hate crimes in the U.S. where, and actually after 9/11, people were attacked and physically brutalized for being Muslim. We had Sikhs, a lot of immigrants attacked Sikhs thinking that they were Muslim. And this issue of xenophobia is very much a factor in the U.S. The U.S. is not this ideological, wonderful place where people can come and live free. Now that you have a situation with the economy, people of color are actually, being targeted. They're the last hired and the first fired. And they haven't done the Pledge of Allegiance in the United States for some time.
You can tell how old I am.
Quite some time.
Thank you very much. I think you were next. You want to come to the front?
It's basically a question, really. Basically, in England, there's a growing sort of state of Islamophobia. After people reading basically Daily Mail and those sorts of things, you find that basically the only thing that kind of got along is in the media. Things like the protests over the Danish cartoons, and all the negative things around as well. And based on my question, with regards to sort of Islamic nations, why do they not open up their borders and so forth? Just because every Muslim person I meet are amazing. I love them. It's unfortunately just the ignorance of people in this country that won't go out there and talk to people. And they just kind of read in the media, and it's kind of a question, why do you think their borders are so closed?
I hope you're taking notes, but could we take maybe 2 more questions before? And then yeah? Because I want to try to hear as many voices as possible. I was thinking maybe we do 2 rounds. So maybe let's take 2 more questions, and then we'll do a second round. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. So you were waiting patiently, and then we'll go to the back. Yes?
Yeah, this is just to refer to a couple comments that were made, and then with reference to the salad and the soup.
One, the dessert as well.
Dessert will come strongly, as I heard from the German countryman.
It's not just salad.
Well, I think because of globalization, culture and identity is becoming really fragmented. At the same time, it's kind of traveling across space now really fast. It's traveling across space because of communication, mass communication, and globalization, and our modes of communication. So people can, I'm Canadian. I've lived in the United States in both New York and DC, and I've seen a lot of interesting cultural things. I'm also studying in Sweden, and I see different things there as well. And I come from this so-called salad in Canada. And I'd like to just share my observation and then ask you a question about both Sweden, the United States is a different issue, but Sweden and Canada. And Sweden is known for being this very tolerant, very open, accepting sort of culture. Yet now that I've been there, you see that the minority groups are in the suburbs, and they're very much segregated from the Swedes or the Europeans, the Scandinavians, or the kind of like the more Caucasian population. And there's actually this thing called the Million Homes Project. I just was exposed to it, and they built this a million homes in the suburbs, and now all the minority groups live around. And then in Canada, the same thing. You've got this kind of multicultural society. It's very accepting, but you find that a lot of the immigrants or people who have migrated in are still forming their own sub-communities within the larger community. They're quite segregated. My mom works for Immigration Canada, helping immigrants assimilate into Canadian culture and actually just try to adjust and work with them. So, but you see that there's this difficulty, and actually because of communication, what they end up doing is immigrants end up staying very much in touch with their cultural identity back home, and then they're constantly communicating with their family members back home, and they're forming smaller communities within. And my question to you is that maybe instead of like a salad or soup, now I'm going to introduce another concept, is that they're on the fringes of society, so you've got this meal, you kind of burnt it, and there's food stuck to the pot. And you could call that maybe immigrants. They've kind of have their own identity, and they're on the fringes of society, literally. And I read about a scholar who said this, that this is a phenomenon where the minority groups are on the fringes while the majority is kind of assimilated or turns into a soup. And there's this interesting dynamic because we want to say, I'm sorry, I'm going to wrap it up. We want to say that we can live in harmony and whatnot, but in reality, this is an ideology, but in reality, how do we kind of integrate our cultures while keeping our own identity? And I'm just asking, you know, is this the best way to look at it? Is government policy, can government policy even have anything to do with cultural identity? Like, how can it even tackle such a topic or subject?
Okay, let me just get a sense, how many other comments or questions are there? Because I'm wondering, should I give it back? If it's only 2 or 3, well, there are more. All right, so maybe, would this be a good moment to give it back to you guys? Because I don't want you to have too many questions at once yet. If that's okay with you, let's bring it back to the panel. Those who feel they would like to make a response to some of the questions, please do, and then we'll take a final round of questions. Please, as you like.
Thank you. I definitely would like to make a comment to what Chris has mentioned, I mean, in terms of fear. I think we heard that during the first day, there was a fear was mentioned. Fear is something really very real, and it is always there, and it is with all of us who are sitting here. But then not only government, but also civil society has, to my idea, duty in education, and it starts from the baby. I mean, it starts from the, and I can only speak for Germany in this case, where I know a bit more than on other countries. For instance, if you teach the baby the story of 10 kleine Negerlein, or if you teach the story of Wer hat Angst vorm schwarzen Mann, I don't know if everybody understands it. I mean, who is afraid of the black man, or 10 little Negroes. I mean, if you teach the kids this right from the beginning, how can you get rid of this when they are our age? I think there is a duty of the civil society, and not only of government. I think to put it onto government, with due respect to government, that's not sufficient. I think the civil society has a role, and we were talking about the internet, the social network. They have to also come onto this in order to change something. This is my first issue, and the second issue was on xenophobia. I'm very cautious with this word of xenophobia. Sometimes I have the feeling that it is a euphemism for racism.
Can I just comment on Islamophobia in this country? I said I've been here for 20 years now. Just to highlight something, one verse from the Holy Book of the Muslim, it says, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ تَعَارَفُوا. We create you a nations and tribe to meet each other. This is a verse in the Holy Book that the Muslim follow. Is an example of saying you have to open up to others. But the issue, I agree with you, is our duty as, you know, a British Muslim who live in this country is to open up to others. But the issue of when we migrated to this country, we had the fear of them not accepting us because of the media and what have you, and how the attack on, you know, daily. I was called one day I was called, this is another Bin Laden. I was walking the street, I was like, another Bin Laden. That's what I've been called. But I ignored it, because when I was educated in this country, my education taught me, and my religion taught me, is to forgive and move forward and ignore whatever the comment there, because if you respond, then you're going to go into, you know, endless discussion. So this is our duty, to open up, and we are trying to open up, but we ask them to accept who we are. The issue here is not being accepted as a Muslim, but saying you have to melt as a British. But we tell them, what is meaning of British? The issue in this country is the identity. What's meaning of British? Are you British or English? And that's an issue they have to resolve first. Then you have to tell us what to be, as a British or an English. I'm British, but I'm not English. So what is being a British or English? So this is the identity of this country. Another thing is, I've withdrawn my comment about the salad. Okay, I don't like any more salad. I'm going to go with the dessert. I'm going to go with the dessert because now it's being so. I completely agree with you here. It is, we should not call ourselves, you know, I'm from this country and I'm British, but we are, I said, one human being, and we are living together as a human. This is the essence of my religion, is we are human regardless of what the background is. I mean, the borders has been withdrawn, I think, 200, 300 years ago. It was never been before. Maybe Germany was not as now. It was, you know, maybe the Austria Empire was part of that. So the borders has been changed. So we can't really call myself as an Iraqi, because Iraq wasn't like this as now. It was maybe bigger than now. So who we are is up to how you believe in what you are. And I believe, you know, as I lived in 20 countries before, 13 countries over. I lived all over the, you know. So I can call myself from North Africa, maybe from the Middle East, maybe from Iraq, maybe from Britain, maybe from Belgium. Doesn't matter who I am. It's matter of who I am now. Is my cultural diversity. I live in this country. You know, I eat fish and chips. I eat, chicken roast on Sunday. I go out and with my friends, and I do different things. I speak English. I speak Arabic. I speak Spanish. I speak, different languages. It doesn't matter where I'm from, it's matter who I am now and how I accept others. I think the issue is here, the policy, the government play a role in making a policy. Like we have anti-Semitism in America and here, they have to create another anti-Islamophobism in this country, because otherwise you have people attacking on the newspaper about the Muslim and this and Muslim that. I think the government should take a step, plus the social, the communities and social media has to play a part, but that only led by a government who can enforce the law, saying we have anti-Semitism because the Jewish being affected. Same thing we have, anti laws against attacking Muslims for for what they believe in everything. I think that from this we can move forward. But the best thing is culture diplomacy. That's the thing that opens up, and public diplomacy. I think a lot of government are paying attention to that area because they find it's important to open up to other governments, to other nations through public diplomacy and through culture diplomacy, because without it, we cannot really share our ideas and our vision together. Without that, we'll be living like my country, your country, and that's it. But through that, I think we can do a lot.
Well, I want to share my experience of a feminist activist. I think we have not just to dream. Of course, we are all human beings and we want to love each other. But there are problems we have to face. Before immigration, in France, we had not female genital mutilations. Since 30 years, we are having these trials to try to stop this traditional practice. We had not forced marriage. This we had in the past, now we have. So we have non-governmental organizations that are helping young women from the second generation that are forced to early marriage too. We had not polygamia. So the second or the third spouses are in vulnerable situation because they don't have their papers. They are completely dependent of the husband and hiding their situation. You have honor crimes, we had not this, which means that, and I come back to my first statement, if you don't take care of this issue of human's right, woman's right, gender equality, of course, even in our countries, we didn't reach gender equality, but we are regressing in the outskirts of the big cities. This is the reason we have a movement like Ni Pute Ni Soumise, a new movement to help these young women. Do we want, because we are tolerant and respecting differences, to respect what is not respectable? And these women are not asking us to be tolerant to this violence against them. So this is one of the issues. We are not dreaming. We are not having this. I'm not coming from Paris here to spend hours and days just to dream of a world that would be so nice that this doesn't exist. This exists, and we have to do something. But we need immigration. House caring. You have look at the TV. The problem of old people. Who is caring old people? Immigrants. So we need these people. We have both to understand that we need these people, and at the same time that women coming here want to have the same right as us, and not a secondary right because we are tolerant to what is not tolerable.
Thank you very much. I think we'll bring it back to the participants. We've had many questions, so let's try to keep them brief, and we can hopefully get everyone in, and then we'll offer a final response for each of the panelists. And again, let's try to go in order. I think you've been waiting longest. Actually, no, I'm sorry, we were here. We left off here. Here first, and then we'll go there, okay? I'm trying to keep it order, please.
Well, remark the importance of how we see immigration. Because in Spain, for example, before the economic crisis, a lot of people from South America came, and they were accepted they were taking the jobs that anyone wants. Almost all the health and all the agriculture were run by South American people. And it was still a difference because, well, unfortunately, we have no good public education, so everyone in middle class goes to private schools, and we were all white, middle class Catholics, but they were also, they speak Spanish, they were Catholic, the children went to public schools, and there was no bigger issue there. But then the economical crisis came, and everything is, they weren't South Americans anymore, they were Panchitos, which is, initially it was a word referring to the way of speaking Spanish, but now it's like an insult. And those jobs they take when anyone else wanted these jobs, now they have stole these jobs. For example, it's a common situation that when women work in a house and the old clothes from the children in the house goes to their children. So in some schools, they call them deaf because they were wearing expensive clothes and they were not Spanish. And that happened because of the economic crisis. So it's the same Spanish people, the same immigrants, but the situation changed and we changed our tolerance, we changed our way of seeing them. So I would like the opinion of the panel discussion.
Thank you very much. Please, I think you were waiting next, yes?
Yes, thanks. I'm really into the soup thing because I know it's an ideal, but I think salads is the way of the lowest resistance, and I think it's a society, for the society it's very difficult to be a soup. But I guess it's worth it because a soup doesn't mean that we're all the same. It means that we are all individuals, but we have the same worldview. And I think it's no solution to go the way of the lowest resistance.
Thank you. Darnell?
Yeah.
No, of course not.
You know, I just wanted to comment first about the dream. In certain human experiences, dreams are the only things that people have. You know, so I know you, and I know probably you didn't consider that when you made that statement. I understand what you were saying, but don't take my dreams away from me. You know, on the one hand. The other thing is about the soup and the salad. I'm a sandwich. I knew that would get a laugh. But I can trace my lineage, part of it back to England, 1526. There are not very many people in England that can do that. I'm also the offspring of the indigenous population of the United States, or the New World, Cherokee Indian. And I'm also obviously the descendant of African slaves. And I live in Germany, you know, and I've been there almost 40 years. I have 4 children, 3 of them living in Germany, and oddly enough, they consider themselves to be German. You know, I did not indicate to them any particular allegiance to any particular land or creed or whatever. But lately, I've been struggling with my own identity. You understand? You know, and it's difficult. You know, because you know you're talking about the slave master, you're talking about the slave, and you're talking about the genocide of the Indians. I actually asked Germans, who am I? I've been here 40 years. Who am I? Patriotism, allegiances. It just occurred to me that why don't we have an allegiance to humanity, to life on this planet? You understand? I was talking to a woman here, and she was talking about, I'm patriotic. Well, you know, I was trying to fight that, you know, because I don't have a country. I live on the planet Earth. I'll make it very brief. I think that we owe an allegiance to this planet that we're on. You know, that's primary and foremost, should be in our concerns. That's it, Mark. I wasn't going to make a big speech.
Thank you. Let's go to this side. I think you were waiting your hand up in the front row, and then Miriam. Okay, yeah, please.
Yeah, it's regarding budget cuts and policy. And I just want to hear from you, like, basically all these organizations, NGOs that have had other projects threatened, and many have either closed down or, and so yeah, we are suffering of an economic crisis, and we hear that the country, the government, has to save money, and that's the reason for these cuts. So firstly, I guess I want to question how much of this is really for, really for saving money, and or what extent is what extent is the drive to it xenophobia, probably, but I guess this is this is just something that I would like to hear more about. About budget cuts, because in order to create a successful integration, we need, people need opportunities, not only dreams. People often have the resources in them. You have immigrants who come with higher education degrees or with very qualified professional experience from abroad. They come here, they end up doing cleaning jobs, or they get women forced into prostitution. So all these things, and so what are we to do? To wait until better times economically? Because the reality is that these people that come, first of all, the potential is being wasted. They become more vulnerable because they're the poorest, the lowest, and then the budget cuts. How is this going to develop? I mean, do we have to wait until better times economically for this to be solved, and more lobbying and campaigning? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Two more questions, one in the back on the left and one in the front. And then we have to actually conclude where the last table, please.
I'm just going to be brief. I just wanted to know what are your views on migration creating poverty in our globalized world, because we find out that people who come, like for example, to the UK, they come for a better life. They come holding, like, for example, in Africa, they've studied, they have like PhD, they're PhD holders, and then they come here, and you find like what they're doing is like cleaning jobs and stuff, and because like their qualifications either is not recognized here or like I don't know. So what are your views on globalization and migration creating poverty?
Okay, and the final question, Miriam?
Thank you. I actually wanted to take it one step further. I'm a Danish Bahraini, and I grew up in Denmark where we faced racism almost on a daily basis, and then I moved back to my home country. And my question is that because what happens after people migrate to a country really affects the situation of migration policies in the country. And so what I've seen through my own experience is that because I'm Bahraini Dane, I face racism all the time. When I'm at the airport, I'm always stopped for extra checks. So I'm constantly treated like I'm supposed to be a terrorist, or I'm supposed to be, someone who's an extremist. And I feel like through exclusion, that's how you create extremism. And one of the issues that I had to deal with was that my father, who's also a Danish citizen, who's now detained in Bahrain after being tortured severely and sentenced to life imprisonment, the Danish government is doing the bare minimum to get him out. And I keep being told by people, well, if he was blonde and blue-eyed, you would see more being done. And I think that's, my question to you is, how do you combat those things? Because those are the things, the exclusion that happens after immigration takes place. That's what then creates extremism. And that extremism is then taken by people who don't want immigration policies to be good towards the immigrants and say, look, well, the immigrants are extremists, they're ruining our country, and that's why we need to have tougher immigration laws.
Thank you. I'd like to give it back to the panelists because we are running a little behind schedule. Maybe a brief concluding remark from each of you. This time, Ms. McCarthy, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to begin with you, and then we'll go in opposite order.
Okay.
Brief final comment or reflection based on the questions.
I was interested by our director, if I can call him that, over there, comment about don't take your dreams away. I would not even think about taking your dreams away, but I also think there has to be some realism that the world is not perfect and the world is the way it is. And that leads me to your comment. I think the economic situation is very real, and I think the cuts have to be made. I think cuts depend on priorities, though, and governments make priorities for which they are elected or thrown out of office. But you are seeing at the moment in a number of countries, such as Italy, that unelected officials have had to take over because it is such an economic mess. I think the question you're asking is, why isn't the funding of these particular NGOs a higher priority than it is? And that's because, particularly for the UK, finding jobs for, let's say, the 1 in 10 young person who doesn't have a job, who's gone to school here and has lived here all his life, can't find work. I'm also interested that there isn't a confusion between those who wish to accept or wish to find asylum because they need to move because of threats to life according to the convention, and those that make a decision to move because they want an economic better existence. My parents moved to America for economic reasons, and that at that time was available to them. I don't know if it would be available now, but I do think you have to say, well, if someone decides they want to change their country, and many want to come to America or to Britain because of the English language, and what they think is a society in which they can better themselves, then they are in competition with those that are already here for the jobs. And I looked at the comment you made about people with professional degrees, and I look at it in terms of the medical situation, which I know about. Those that work, who come from the European Union and or have the ability to say that they come through the European Union, can be practicing doctors in this country without any further exams because their degrees are recognized because of freedom of movement. Others can't. They have to come in and do an exam called PLAB, which is to test their English proficiency, and then they have to do foundation years 1 and 2. I would not feel comfortable. In fact, there's a movement to say that all doctors, whether they come in from the EU or outside the EU, should be tested at least on their English language ability. Because we have had occasions where doctors from Germany, I have to say, there was one particular doctor from Germany who actually killed a patient because he could not speak English effectively and he gave a wrong diagnosis and a wrong prescription and the person died. And I think it is right that all doctors who wish to practice in this country should be able to communicate in English, because that is the language that we speak here. And if you, whether it's a soup or a salad or a dessert, that's the language of communication. And if you're going to be treated by someone, or if I'm going to have a doctor treating me, I want to know they can understand the symptoms I'm describing to them. So I don't think there's anything wrong saying to, in this case, a doctor, I need to be reassured that the way you can practice here is sufficient for our purposes. I think that's good regulation. I think that's protecting patients, which is the whole idea of the General Medical Council as a regulator. I also think it's protecting the doctors because they can function effectively. I should say that I mentored a number of asylum seekers who were doctors in this country for a number of years to help them to get through these exams. And I have to say they were all from Africa, and they are all now practicing again. But I don't think I would have felt comfortable, even though one of them was a very highly qualified surgeon, but he couldn't speak any English, that he could have practiced immediately here. Because I think he might have found it very uncomfortable, because it's not just the English language, it's the whole NHS system. How do you work in the hospital? For example, one of the exam questions on Foundation 1 is, where do you stand in relation to the patient? There were areas in his medical training that did not cover areas in our medical training. So I think you have to recognize that people coming in, even though they're professionals and will be given credit for that usually in their profession, still have to be put into a position where they can operate effectively in the new country, because it's not the same. And I should tell you that I have people I regulate who come from all over the world to act as immigration advisors. Many of them do not understand the concept of regulation because they don't have it where they come from, even though they may be giving advice as an immigrant advisor there. So I think it's important to recognize that you just can't walk from one culture, one country, one legal system to another and expect that you can just pick up the pieces. You have to be integrated into that structure. And there should be ways of doing that, and I have to say the GMC has done that.
How could you integrate if you don't find any job?
Well, if you're coming as an economic migrant, which is what I'm talking about here, as distinct from an asylum seeker, I think you have to think about your options. I think you have to be realistic. You cannot expect that there will be a job for you just because you want a job in the society you're moving to. I mean, that is a fact of life. There are a lot of people competing with you. And the fact that you can come to this country doesn't mean that a job in the way you want that job to be will be available. Talking about one of the doctors that I mentored, while he was waiting to pass all these exams, he worked as an advisor for an HIV charity, talking to people in West African communities about HIV. He was using his medical training, but he wasn't being able to practice as a doctor. But he still could use his medical training. But I think it would have been arrogant of him to walk in and say, well, I'm a doctor and I've got my certificate, therefore I should be entitled to practice, even though I can't speak really any English at the moment, and I don't know anything about the NHS, and I have no background in gynecology and obstetricians, even though that's what you have to learn here in the syllabus. So I think you have to say to yourself, not only what does the country owe me, but what do I have to do to get the job I want here? Otherwise, I think you're being unrealistic. I have to say I'm a lawyer, and I wouldn't expect as a lawyer to be able to go to America and just say, I can practice as a lawyer because I'm a lawyer in Britain. And that's what I think I'm getting the sense that you feel I can come in and I should be able to do the job that I've trained to do. You may have to do some other things to get there. That's the way it is.
Okay, I'll just a few words I'll say. I don't think we are dreaming about having one world, one nation, and live in harmony. I believe this is already happening, and it's already, I can see it in reality. Who would expect, an African living in Germany without being harassed? I mean, we're looking about 50 years ago. This is impossible. Who would you think that we have a black president in South Africa? Who would believe that we would have a black president in the US? Who would believe we had a lot of change in the world we live in now? And nations that living together in one room here. I think it's possible. The only is impossible is our ignorance, that we don't want to open up to each other. We don't understand. We don't want to understand each other because the fear of ourselves, as I said, because we don't know, this guy is taking my job, or this person is taking, the money, or this person taking the houses I'm living in. That's the fear of yourself because you are insecure about yourself. If you're secure about yourself, you said, I welcome the others to come in and see how the others have brought the positive thing to our country. Maybe they are negative because the negative is not because that person is negative, it's because you don't understand that person and how he's coming from. For example, we hear in this country the woman wearing the veil, or the woman wearing the burqa or something, because she wants to wear a burqa. It's not, she's not a scary person. She's not a person, no, she's not an evil wearing the burqa. But as a person, she loves to wear a burqa. Like we've seen ladies, wearing a bikini, working on the beach. That's her choice. But the lady on the burqa have an identity, and that identity has to be respected. That's the issue we have, is disrespect to others who are living like this. For example, Mariam here, she's wearing a scarf because she wants to wear a scarf. That's her identity. And the lady there, you wear a miniskirt. That's your choice. It's not the fear is what you wear, is your identity. You need to understand how people think and where they come from, understand how the culture are. If you want to live together, you have to be, open-minded to others, like we do. When we have, before coming to this country, we hear like, you go to this white country and you're gonna be asking you to drink to be part of them. They're gonna ask you to come out and clubbing to be part of them. You have to go out with your colleague on Friday to drink and get drunk to be part of them. And I came out like, whoa, what I'm gonna do? I can't drink because of my religion. I can't go out because of my religion. But then I found that actually it's not. You don't have to drink to be part of this society. You don't have to be drunk to be part of the society. You don't have to do a lot of things to be part of society. Basically, you respect the society you live in. You respect the regulation and the law, and don't expect you're going to go there and they're going to welcome you. It's like, here's a job for you, and here's a house for you, and here's a car. No, that's not right, because that's what we thought in back there. England is the dream of every Middle Eastern. and probably the US, but England was the dream of the Middle Eastern to be here, and you're gonna, living in happily. But when they came here, they get shocked by the reality. It's not what we expected. I think the issue here is more about misperception of each other, and if we, try to understand each other, and I think it's not gonna. If we understand each other, I think we're not gonna have a dream. We can have a reality of, get to know each other. You're not gonna lose anything. You can Google, the book cut. You can Google, the scarf. You can Google. We are open up, we can. Internet now have given us an opportunity to understand more about each other, and that I think the gateway to more live in harmony.
Let me make only 3 sentences because of time. The first sentence is, don't give up the dream. I think I remember Martin Luther, and I think all of you do. I had a dream. And even this dream in Germany has led now to the first minister in the government in Bremen, you might have read it, who is a Congolese-born minister in Bremen, so the first thing. And also a Turkish who is a origin from Turkey and who is a German and leading the party. So that's the first thing. Don't give up the dream. The dreams make it. If you don't have the dreams, you will never make it. The second point is definitely the crisis. The economic crisis is there, no doubt. But I would really foster governments, a representative of governments, but also civil society, to look into my desert example, namely to look into the competences, to look into the professionalism, into the capacities of the migrants. That's definitely is there, and this is neglected. And the third thing is the role. There are various players, various key players, elemental key players. The media, get the media. I mean, the media, what they do in damaging very often. They could also do good things. I mean, get them through government regulations, but also through the civil society who is strong enough.
Well, just a sentence. I agree with Martin Luther King. He made a dream, but he struggled for that dream. He struggled for that dream. He didn't just say reality is a dream. Reality is not a dream. If you don't struggle knowing exactly what you want and what you don't want, you will never reach your objective.
And I would like to close just quickly by applauding 2 of the comments over here, our media specialist and then the very passionate young lady who spoke earlier. I love your idealism, and I think ultimately that's where we are heading as a world where, but we won't get there overnight. It will take time, but I think as the world shrinks, through increased travel, education, social media, that kind of thing, I think that increasingly we're all going to become citizens of the world. I know my own background, during my undergraduate studies, I came to London and studied for a year, and it rocked my world, as they say. It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic, and that's why I'm here again. And it really opened me up to new perspectives, and it provided quite an education, much more than just in the classroom. It was fantastic, and so I think that as people engage in those kinds of opportunities, more and more, we will start to share more international salad-free experiences.
Well, thank you very much for those closing remarks. I'd like to take this opportunity, if we could all please extend our gratitude to the panelists.